have some friendly transfer portal great debate with these two guys. We know they have a lot to say. We have Carl Reed and Bud Elliott here, and I am right in the middle, so keep it clean, guys, all right? We're going to hit some big transfer portal topics, and you're going to tell me exactly what you think about these topics. Let's start with Colorado. 50 new additions from the portal for Deion Sanders' squad. So I'll ask you this, Carl. Is this whole Colorado thing going to work?
Of course it's going to work. It's going to work, number one, because everything Deion Sanders has done in his life has worked. That's number one. Number two, these are huge upgrades for the University of Colorado's football team. I was at the spring game. There had to be some changes made from a talent standpoint. Now, it's unusual. You haven't seen this before. But you haven't seen this before, Bud, because this was not a rule that was allowed in the past. Now you see it. Coaches have to win. They have to win now. You don't sell out season tickets. You don't sell out games. And you don't bring in Deion Sanders without the expectation that we're going to be good sooner rather than later.
Look, I don't disagree that Deion has upgraded the roster. He has. I think he'd be an idiot to say that he hasn't. But A, prime prep didn't work, so not everything Deion touches works. And he's upgraded the roster a lot. But at Jackson State, they had 20 guys off that roster last year go NFL or P5 level transfer or FBS transfer. So he did have a huge talent advantage over most of the SWAC teams that they played. So we haven't really seen Deion and the staff coach with a talent disadvantage and see how that goes. So a lot of this comes down to how do you define will it work, right? Does that make a bowl game? I'm going to say heck no, right? TCU early, Nebraska early, USC comes in here and drops 50 on that defense, and then they're probably not playing a whole lot of more primetime games after September. I think they'll be a better team than they were last year, but I don't think they're going to make a bowl game. And
what do you think?
One to three wins? Well,
but did you just throw Nebraska in the same sense with TCU and USC? I know that's not what.
Wait, so are you picking over Nebraska?
I'm going to pick them over Nebraska.
All right, okay.
But you just did throw Nebraska in there with TCU and USC. So let's slow down a little bit there. In the name of the game, people will say, well, when he was in the SWAC, he had better players than everybody. Well, that's the name of the game.
He recruited.
It is to recruit better players, and he's done an excellent job recruiting so far. And some of those players he did bring with him to Colorado, and a couple of those guys everybody in the country wanted.
What happens if they do lose a bunch of ball games early, though? Does he keep that culture together? These guys really can't go anywhere because they already used their one transfer, but they didn't come up together as a team. He's having to establish his culture in 2 months, and there is some bonding stuff, not a ton, but there's some of that seems to matter, culturally within a football team. Are they going to keep it together? Carl, their Vegas win total right now is 3. It got bet down from 4 to 3.5 to 3. If they go 3-9, does this thing go off the rails? How does Deion keep it together there? I don't know.
Anytime you have adversity, you can either band together or you can blame everyone else. So we'll see if they're able to band together. His first year at Jackson State, they took some losses too. They lost 2 or 3 league games during that time, and a lot of people were saying, oh my God, this isn't going to work. But year 2 is always the biggest turnaround. But the team that they're going to have on the field this fall is going to be significantly better than the 1-11 team of last fall, and that's what's the most important thing here.
I think that's totally fair. The one counter I'd have to that, right, is he used almost all his bullets right now, right, because he took so many transfers this time. He can't go out and take a huge transfer class next year because you really can't get rid of the guys on your roster in year 2 like you could in year 1. So if they miss it all there, that's going to hurt. And if they don't win enough ball games this year on the field, that is going to impact high school recruiting. We've already seen they had a couple of decommits. The other day, the kid decommitted and went to LSU. If they go 3-9 or 4-8, does the Deion hype there nationally wear off a little bit to where they're not able to recruit at a high enough level to get Colorado over the hump?
Well, I don't think they shot all their bullets. They still have enough scholarships left that they did not feel on purpose, so that if they had to get additional guys after the season, that they were in a position to do so. But winning is what solves all problems, and losing gets you off track in any situation. So they do have to win some football games for sure.
Certainly helps that the bar that they have to cross is 1 win from last year. So the expectations in year 1, I'm sure, will be somewhat measured, but as Bud is saying, is how does this look in the next couple of years to come? Okay, we talk a lot of Colorado when it comes to the transfer portal, but a team we don't talk about a whole lot is Iowa. So my question here is, Iowa's revamped portal offense is fill in the blank.
Not fixed.
Nope.
Because they did not get a portal addition at offensive coordinator, right? Brian Ferentz is still the coordinator there. I think the number one goal for Iowa remains funneling money to members of Kirk Ferentz's family, right? Like not trying to score points. They win in spite of their offense every year. Like if you're Cade McNamara, why in the world did you commit to Iowa? Like you had to be thinking they'd make a change at offensive coordinator. Instead, they come up with this cockamamie scheme that they have to average 25 points a game and go to a bowl game in order for the OC not to get fired. So yes, they've upgraded the talent there a little bit. They've not upgraded the offensive coaching. I'm not sold.
But you got to put some respect on the University of Iowa, one of the nation's most consistent programs, both in wins and producing NFL caliber
And in
talent.
bad offense, consistently bad in offense too.
Listen, they've been good enough that they were just playing in the Big Ten championship game a couple of seasons ago. They went out, they got the quarterback they needed. They got a really good receiver in Keon Brown. We talked about him on the show earlier. They also got Eric All at tight end, the transfer from Notre Dame. They have made some key personnel acquisitions to improve their offensive football team. And a lot of times we put a lot of onus on coaches, but it's a player's game. You got to have players. And the talent that they recruited is going to put them in a better position to win football games this fall.
But Carl, you cannot be telling me that they recruit to a level of a top 5 defense and a bottom 10 offense in the entire country. Some of that has to fall on coaching. Like the level of offensive coaching they have here cannot hold the jock that the defensive coaching has. Right? That defensive coaching and player development is really good. On offense, there's no evidence they know what they're doing at all. Like they make the Big Ten title game, they might have could have won the thing if they could score 30 points, right? Like they don't even try on offense.
You're moving the goalposts when you start comparing the defense to the offense.
Why? It's the same school they have to recruit to.
We're talking about did they improve the offense, which they made improvements offensively. Defensively, they've always been consistently one of the best, and they are going to feel the needs. Coach Ferentz is one of the most competitive guys in the country. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's done it for a very long time. Look for Iowa to have a major improvement offensively, and look for Bud to be back here apologizing.
Man, they are not a serious program on offense. I'm sorry. There ain't no way.
I have questions as to whether either of those things will happen, the apology or what we see from Iowa's offense. But yeah, definitely a lot of question marks when it comes to what's going to happen with Iowa's offense this year. But they did bring in some of those pieces, but we'll see if the coaching is enough to complement those. Okay, I love this next question because you're looking at kind of this portal strategy, and we see these coaches, they have very different viewpoints on what works versus what doesn't, and there could not be two further ends of the spectrum than what we see at Florida State versus Clemson. Just to put it into perspective here, over the last 4 seasons since Mike Norvell has taken over, Florida State has brought in double-digit transfers every season, while Clemson, during that time, has brought in 2 total. Look at this comparison. It is absolutely nuts. So, Bud, I'll start with you. Did Florida State do enough to close the gap between them and Clemson?
I think they absolutely did. Like Florida State realized it did not have much juice on the high school recruiting trail. It had to do what it had to do, which is go out, hit the transfer portal, have some early success in the transfer portal, and then parlay that early success into a higher quality of transfer portal player in those successive classes. There ain't no doubt that Florida State has closed the gap on Clemson because of its use of the portal and because of Dabo Swinney's just basic refusal to use the portal. Like you can't tell me that Clemson doesn't have misses on its roster that it could improve by going to the portal. They went to the portal to get Garrett Riley, an offensive coordinator, something that obviously Kirk Ferentz could have done, would all get rid of the nepotism stuff, but not taking back to the Iowa debate there. But look, if Clemson used the portal appropriately over the last 2 years, they would be the ACC favorite. They're not because they failed to use the portal. They have misses on that roster they're still carrying.
So what is the argument for what Dabo's doing?
Dabo believes in the way that he's recruited and the culture that he's built at Clemson, a culture that has produced multiple national titles, multiple first-round draft picks, multiple ACC titles, multiple wins over the Florida State Seminoles. Why would he be scared of Florida State? When is the last time Florida State has beat Dabo Swinney and
2014.
2014.
Was Jameis Winston the quarterback then when that happened?
No,
Okay.
he was suspended for that game with Sean McGuire.
Yeah. So we're talking a decade ago was the last time they lost to Florida State. Coach Swinney believes in recruiting the 4 and 5 stars that he has on campus and developing them. That's what he believes in. They have went after a couple of guys in the portal, but he's really into that culture fit. And until you beat them, until Florida State can go in there and beat them, that's the only time you can say they closed the gap. Not almost, not it looks like what it looks like on paper. Clemson has dominated the ACC, and they're the champs of it until they ain't the champs no more.
I don't want to move the goalpost here, but they did lose to South Carolina. They did lose to Tennessee, and they got whipped by Notre Dame last year. Are we sure that Dabo isn't not doing all he can do by not using the portal? Like, you can't sit here and tell me, Carl, you watch these Clemson receivers, and that Dabo thinks these guys are good. Dabo is not an idiot. I think he's just so hard fast to this culture thing that he's not improving that room.
So you don't think the guys that he went and offered scholarships to, and he has one of the most—
Some of those are busts now.
He has one of the most intensive recruiting processes of anybody in the country. You don't think he thinks those guys are good football players?
If he thinks all those receivers on his roster are good football players, then he's not as good of a coach as I thought he was. They're not. Some of those are just Johnny Tryhards. They look like Dabo, right? Like, they're not very good, man. Like, they didn't scare anybody in the ACC last year with those receivers.
You know Dabo played football at Alabama.
I know.
Okay,
But even some of the best recruiters have misses. I mean, do you sense what Bud's
Did Georgia
saying
miss? Like, Georgia took 4 kids in the portal this year at receiver because they lost A.D. Mitchell, and they missed on a couple of the high school kids they took.
Everybody has misses. Alabama's missed
Apparently
on
not Clemson.
Alabama's missed on some of the guys in the secondary. But
we're talking
about a philosophy. That's not what he believes in. And until you see somebody surpass him, we can't say that they've caught up.
I mean, I think just because Florida State does not surpass them does not mean that other teams in their league and other teams on their schedule annually have not. I do think they're letting people catch up. Look, Dabo's still a great coach, man, and they still recruit high schools so well. But he's not maximizing their roster value if he's just refusing to use the portal.
How many national championships has Dabo won?
3, 2? Has he got 2? Deshaun got 1 and Trevor got 1, right?
2 national championships, that makes you one of the very best coaches in the country. Look, that's the same amount of national championships that Kirby Smart has. Nick Saban has more.
I'm glad you bring up Nick Saban.
You cannot call into question a 2-time national champion.
Nick Saban won his first 2 national titles at Alabama by doing what? Defense, run game. Defense, run game. Defense, run game. Quarterback was an afterthought. He saw how the game was changing. What did he do? Did he stick and be stubborn with defense, run game, or he said, no, I'm going to go get Lane Kiffin. I'm going to understand what he's doing to run this offense. We're going to incorporate those elements into our offense. We're going to change. And he won 3 more national titles after that because he evolved as the sport evolved.
He did. He was stubborn until somebody beat him. Yes, it started to change. But until somebody consistently could beat him, which was Johnny Football, then which was Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss, he didn't change until that. You're not going to feel like when you're at the level that those guys are, that your way doesn't work until it doesn't work. And I have not seen on the field in the ACC it not work.
A lot of great discussion here. I love that you guys got me ready for the season and that we're going to just see how this argument plays out on the field this year. We'll see if there's a new king in the ACC, but as Carla said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's what Dabo's doing. Speaking of coaches, though, which second-year coach under pressure improved his roster the most? We're choosing between Mario Cristobal or Brent Venables. What do you think, Carl?
Well, I think that Mario Cristobal almost got lucky if the Miami Heat would have lost, because then it would have been more pressure on Jimmy Butler, all right, than it was on Mario Cristobal. But I'm going to go with Brent Venables here at the University of Oklahoma. Brent Venables playing and still in a Big 12 schedule, they have an opportunity to drastically improve. They've gotten some key transfers, especially we talked earlier in the show about the importance of offensive tackles. They got Walter Rouse, a guy that everybody wanted at the offensive tackle position, commits, leaves Stanford and goes to the University of Oklahoma, an NFL guy. I think that his staff, the continuity that they have, I look for Oklahoma to make a run in the Big 12 this year, and they're going to need it because they'll be in the SEC after that, and that is a different ballgame.
Totally agree that Venables is under way more pressure than Cristobal. Cristobal's a native son of Miami. I don't think they had the money to fire him if they wanted to, and they're going to give him a really long leash. Venables, guy has no head coaching track record, had to do a good job in the portal, and he did. But I do like Miami's class a little bit. I think they did a nice job addressing what they needed. They went and got 4 cornerbacks, including Jedias Richard of Vanderbilt, who's a pretty good player, and Vandy thought he was their best corner. They get Javion Cohen, who was a multi-year starter for Alabama, a good player there. At guard, they get Matthew Lee, who was an All-American, or not an All-American, but an All-American Conference center at UCF to come in and be their center. They got some help at the receiver position and also at the edge rusher spot. I kind of like what Miami did better here than Venables, but I mean, both these guys are under pressure. Like, if Cristobal doesn't win 8-9 ball games this year, the recruiting will drop off. Kids are not going to buy into back-to-back bad seasons there.
Well, I think what's even tougher is the expectation. Miami expects to compete for national championships.
Yeah.
And they expect for you to sign all the top players in the state of Florida. So I think there's a different level of pressure. Oklahoma wants to win championships, but they've given their coaches over the years a long leash that have lost some big games. Bob Stoops lost some big games. Lincoln Riley lost some, and there was never a lot of pressure on them from the state of Oklahoma. Maybe some disappointment here and there, but they were a little more reasonable than what the fans are in the University of Miami and the state of Florida.
Totally, but Oklahoma will not tolerate you having a losing record, which Oklahoma did last year. They were 6-7. So like the last time a guy had a losing record at Oklahoma, I think it was John Blake, and even at that time he was recruiting his butt off, and Bob Stoops ended up winning with 2 years later, winning the national title with a lot of those guys that Blake recruited. That's a good debate, man. I don't know. Like, I'm going to go Cristobal, but I see Carl's point here on this one.
Oklahoma, we talk about John Blake. When John Blake was coaching at Oklahoma, I was just winning my first grade spelling bee.
Did we just come to an agreement on something? We're going full circle.
I got second place in the spelling bee. Look at that. We got spelling
and you got
bee
second place today.
Oh, man. Okay,
God,
that was good.
All right. On that note, we're going to go ahead and end this transfer portal great debate. Be sure to check out all of the brand new transfer portal rankings. Our guys have been working extra hard, so head to 247sports.com.